Hi, my name is Camilla Chandler and I run an organisation called South Bristol Consortium for Young People, which is locally known and named by the young people South Bristol Youth. I run the organisation and I've been doing that for about 11 or 12 years now. South Bristol Youth is a charity. It's also a company limited by guarantee, and the mission of the organisation is to help largely disadvantaged young people do well at school, attend school, go on to higher education or further education, or both, get good jobs, get good apprenticeships. So really do as well as they possibly can in the education system. And then we try and show them the sorts of jobs and opportunities that they could have. So for example, we will take them to a variety of different workplaces. We take them to theatres, to colleges and universities. So really trying to give the young people very much a rounded view of the opportunities that are available to them. And we do that in partnership with our schools. So we work with around 30 schools at the moment. Most of our schools are in South Bristol, but they range from South Gloucestershire right the way down into South Somerset. So quite a big geographical reach. Typically we work with about 2,000 young people a year, maybe slightly more, on what we call our cohort programs. Typically a program would have about 10 activities, and the young people would, within those 10 activities, they would work with one of our mentors. So the mentor knits the activities together and they will do a variety of different things. So they'll almost always go to a university, they'll almost always go to a college, they'll probably go to a theatre, they'll probably go to a workplace, particularly if they're on an apprenticeship programme. We also do a lot of public speaking training, because public speaking is one of those skills that makes people nervous. It's quite a difficult thing to do, but it's just one of those skills that takes you a really, really long way with an audience, or simply just communicate with your family or with your friends, or for these young people that we work with, their teachers, is really, really important. So those really critical speaking and listening skills we work on a lot. Because actually employers, whenever you ask employers what they're looking for, what they're really looking for is people who can communicate well. That's what they really want. Skills can be learned, but those sort of really important, sometimes called soft skills, but I think that's a little bit of a misnomer actually, because that almost degrades the skill, and that communication skill is really important. We also do quite a lot of personality profiling with the young people, particularly the older ones, to help them really understand what they're like, I suppose, and how they might relate their own character traits to their job. So jobs are not only the skill that you have, but they're outside, they're driving, they're in offices, so kids have really got to understand how their personality relates to the sorts of jobs that they're doing. So South Bristol Youth grew from a tiny nugget, just me and a group of kids in a cookery room doing some cookery. And the organisation grew until we got quite a large contract to help disadvantaged young people go on to higher education. And at that point, we suddenly went from working with, say, 200 kids to working with 1,500. And we had to have a way of knowing who they were, having all of the really important safeguarding stuff. So all of their information in an easy to reach location. So at that point, that is why a database like Salesforce is incredibly important for the organisation, because it's part of the growth plan. Performa were there for us, which is absolutely just amazing, and very quickly picked up on the sorts of things that the organisation was doing and why those things were important, and has helped us enormously over quite a few years. I don't know exactly how many, but I'm guessing it's around 7 or 8 years now. And so we've been able to develop and deliver our programs with this range of different schools almost seamlessly. So we're able to give the schools clear information about the days. We're able to ensure that the staff at SBY understand the safeguarding issues that each of those schools and the young people have, which is really important for us. And it's done in a way that's quick and easy. And I suppose being the chief executive, one of the things that is an indication of a well-run system is when you don't hear much about it. And so the work that Performa does with the lady that runs our database, Sabina, just sort of happens in the background. There doesn't seem to be any drama, there doesn't seem to be any difficulty. I'm sure there are some difficulties sometimes, but it doesn't seem to get to me that often. And for me, trying to run an organisation and critically raise $750,000 a year, that is vitally important. The other thing is Performa don't charge us. Now, that is important because when people fund us, they really like to fund activities. So if you say we're going to take 500 young people to the theatre, that's a nice thing to fund. It feels good. But people don't really want to fund databases. They don't want to fund the really, really important back of the organisation. I call it the engine room of the organisation, but the back of the organisation. And so the fact that Performa does that for us is vitally important, but not only pays for it, but also helps us develop the system. So you're not a passive partner. Performa's not a passive partner. It's an active partner. The decision to work with Performa was, I think, for a couple of reasons. First of all, Performa were willing to work with us. So that's really important. Understood the mission of the organisation and were keen to help us develop what we're doing. And also Performa is local. Salesforce is an enormous company. You know, you see big Salesforce logos in all of the major cities in the world. But Performa, working alongside Salesforce and being a local organisation, which has a stake in the local community, is vitally important, because I believe you've got to see it to believe it. Whenever, if you're working with your local community, you've got to see the issues, you've got to see what's happening, you've got to agree that there are certain solutions that need to be there to help the community. So that's really the reason we've worked with Performa, and the reason we've carried on working is because of this really easy but highly professional relationship that it just makes it really easy to work with Performa. The benefits that we've seen as a result of our work with Performa: time saving. That's massive for us. We work with a lot of young people in a lot of schools, and the system allows us to save a huge amount of time producing documentation. For example, first thing in the morning when I wake up at 7 o'clock, straight into my inbox is a list of the activities that we are running on that day, which is very useful because I quickly understand where everybody is, and they could be anywhere from Glastonbury to Bristol to Clevedon to Weston-super-Mare. So for me running the organisation, it gives me a quick snapshot of the geography of what we're doing on any particular day. Equally, that happens every 2 weeks, so I get a really clear view of the quantum of the organisation. We all work from home, so it's actually quite difficult to really get your head around where everybody is all the time when everybody's sort of running around the different counties. One of the main reasons why we're using Performa is that Performa is on hand for us. Solutions are found quite quickly. We don't have in-house support. We have a lady that runs our database, and she's grown and developed as a result of the partnership with Performa, so has learned lots and lots of new skills, which is a really important, almost not a byproduct, isn't it? It's CPD for staff, so that's amazing. She's now got some fantastic database skills. What I find is if we're asking for some changes within the systems, it's very, very swiftly done. We don't seem to have to wait, which frankly, for an organisation that is not charging us, that is absolutely incredible. So it's sort of like a seamless relationship. Performa provides us with a really personal service. So works really closely with our members of staff, takes an awful lot of care in the product that we have, and is just available to us, which is incredibly useful. Performa isn't faceless, which some big organisations can be. We feel like we're working with people. I think the Salesforce Pledge 1% and other things that are like that are incredibly important to society. We're in a world where making a profit almost seems to champion everything, and having lots of money seems to champion everything. But in the end, we're just made up of lots and lots of small communities of people. that all come together and try and do good things. And third sector, or the charitable sector, has been around since Dickens. And that sector tries to help where maybe private solutions don't work and public sector solutions don't work. So when organisations have the kind of trust that Salesforce does, the Pledge 1%, it means that when they're giving to third sector organisations, we can find maybe bespoke solutions to society's problems. So I think they are really important. I also think that today's workforce wants a situation where the company isn't just all about making money. Younger employees are looking for organisations that want to give back to society, that isn't just about profiteering and making lots of money. Of course, a profit is important because you can't give back unless you make a profit. But companies having what was called a CSR agenda is now called an ESG agenda is incredibly important, and certainly it will help the third sector, the charitable sector, thrive into the future if those sorts of things exist.
The Salesforce 1% Pledge Scheme is basically part of something that the Salesforce Foundation set up. So the Salesforce Foundation is their kind of philanthropic organisation that's linked to Salesforce. It was set up by Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce. And the principle is essentially you give 1% of your profit, 1% of your time and 1% of your product to charitable organisations. So for us, it works really nicely with our own goals. Obviously, we want to support charities, we want to give back to the community, and we are obviously part of the Salesforce ecosystem, so it makes sense that we align with that. For us, it means that we support a number of charities at the moment with their Salesforce administration. As part of being a Salesforce Foundation charity, they actually get given free Salesforce licenses, but obviously what they don't have internally is the technical know-how and expertise to actually configure it, get it up and running and improve it and administrate it day to day. So we support a number of organisations free of charge, so that's our way of giving back. Often what we'll do is every year we'll do a poll with our staff and people can basically put forward charities that they would like donations to go to, and in the past we've pretty much like split up an amount of money and then sent it across a number of different charities. So I think it's really important to look after those charities and help them, because particularly in the current economic climate, obviously times are tough, donations are lower, so anything that we can do to help is a good thing. So South Bristol Youth reached out to us a number of years ago because they were struggling with their Salesforce. They knew that it could do a lot more than what they were using it for, but they just didn't have the how, basically. And also there were certain processes that they were already running on the platform which they were struggling with. So that's how we first got in contact with them. We've basically helped them over the years to add lots of new functionality, improve things that weren't quite working as they should, and effectively what that means is they can offer a lot more experiences for more children that they support.
South Bristol Youth work with Performa because it is a boutique organisation, and it feels like our success is Performa's success. It has a depth and a uniqueness that works for us, and I think also works for Performa.